ECE virtual program.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Can people hear me? I always like to double check that first. I love the thumbs up. Thank you so much. Alana, did you want to keep that PowerPoint up to continue going through some of the things that we had chatted about, or do you want to do that after? Oh, I can't hear you right now. You're muted.
So just so everybody knows, this is how eCampus rolls. A lot of you're on mute, and also you're on mute. It'll happen to everybody. I did it first to take away the embarrassment. So Raquel, I'm happy to run the slides if that's helpful for you, but if you just want to tell me what you want to see or when to change, because I won't necessarily be able to see everyone.
Perfect. That sounds great. And thanks for everybody who's just popping in now. You haven't missed anything. We're just getting started with getting started. Thanks. So we've got the getting started piece here. I'm Raquel. I'm the current faculty member who is teaching this program right now. And I'm lucky to have one of the current students who is going to be graduating in June, Bethany, if you want to give a little wave. She's there, so she's going to be my guinea pig for the day, I guess you could say, but she's kind of used to it. We're going to talk a little bit about the program, and we're also going to do a little bit of a mock, I don't want to use the word presentation, but a little bit of a mock class, I guess you could say, to get the flavor for what this might be. The online forum can be a little bit weird. Oh, and I think Sabrina Skinner has just popped into the meeting too. Oh, hi, Sabrina. I wasn't sure if you could make it, but she's also one of our current students who's graduating. I'm so glad that you could be here. I'm really happy about that. So you get to see each other. You get to see what this flavor is all about. We'll talk a little bit about schedule and work. I do want to keep this somewhat informal. Alana's going to be paying attention to the chat and any questions you might have. It's probably your best bet for today, although you can also raise your hand. If you aren't familiar with Teams and you're wondering, where is the chat? I can't see it. It's up at the top. So if you look at the very top of your screen, you might have a different version of Teams than I, but usually it's up at the top, and if you hit chat, a bubble comes up, and then you can type a message on the right there, just in case you're wondering, how do I ask a question and where is the chat? So let's keep it going with the slides, I think, Alana. Great. So hopefully you're all here to become an ECE because that's what this Get Started is for. So the ECE diploma program is for individuals who aspire to become ECEs and licensed childcare centers or pre-primary programs in Nova Scotia. That also includes iterations of childcare like preschools, daycare centers, regulated childcare that is done out of homes. After completing the ECE diploma, you can apply for the Level 2 classification under the Early Learning and Childcare Act and Regulation. So after this program is finished, you can apply through the department, and I can certainly walk you through that. Alana could, or whoever the new faculty member might be, can do that for you as well. You will be able to plan inclusive programs that help nurture the physical, psychological, and social well-being of children and their families, which is a major goal of this program. Is that what people were expecting? Did anyone have questions about any of that? I'll just keep moving on then. So a typical week, and I think Scott was asking this earlier, like, do I need a camera? What is this going to look like? This is a little bit of a different program because it's done virtually. But there is an expectation that you will attend class daily. So this is an idea of what your Monday to Friday day-to-day would look like. So in the mornings, there would typically be more of a lecture style, although I don't I personally don't love to lecture. It's more of an interactive class. So one that you would expect if you walked into a classroom in one of the NSCC campuses. A similar expectation, it's done synchronously. So you're expected to attend each day. Your learning will really be based upon your participation. So it's really important that you come to class and ask questions, but also share your experiences as well, so we can all continue growing together. There'll be time for office hours, and usually in the afternoons there'll be drop-ins, which will either narrow focus on some of the things that we talked about, provide more of a chance to participate in group activities together, to learn from one another, to walk through scenarios, and some time to catch up as well, because we all know that there's times where sometimes we get behind, but this gives you a little snippet of what the Monday to Friday could be. I know myself, I appreciate video. It can get really tough, participating with a class of just bubbles. If you can see here, sometimes you can see people's bubbles and initials. It's really nice to have interaction like you would in a classroom. And you are, if you want to be an ECE, going to be working with little people in real life and not bubbles, right? So it's a great way to practice that, interacting with other people, building relationships, and getting comfortable doing this type of work really face-to-face, even though it's more screen to screen. Maybe the next slide, Elena. This is a snippet of what the program looks like. You don't have to have any of this memorized. It will be walked through it will be walked through to you. You can tell it's the end of the day as you begin this program. But something that I did want to highlight that's really important, especially for this program, is the work experiences. So work experiences, also known as practicums, are required for completion of this diploma. There are 4 of them. 2 of them are done in the spring, and 2 of them are embedded in the winter semesters. So you can see them circled here. You are responsible for tracking down your own work experience. Does this mean that you're going to be alone in this process? No, it does not. There'll be people here to support you. Your colleagues can also, share advice with you too. But one thing you should start to do now is think about your location. And I know many of you are in locations in quite rural areas. Think about realistically, what is a place that I know in and around my neighborhood or somewhere that's realistic for me to get to that I could use as a work experience. Some students realize that, oh my goodness, like the nearest program to me is about, an hour and a half away, and like, how am I going to get there on a daily basis? So that is something that you need to be thinking about. Tara says, can that be done at our current employer? I do know the answer to this, but Alana, do you want to share just so people don't get sick of hearing my voice?
I'm trying to get between all the screens. Usually it isn't done at your current employer. It's usually done in another place. If you have been working for a certain amount of time, we can have a conversation about whether or not you can get recognition for where you have worked previously. It is important in this to look for a licensed child care center. You cannot do your practicums at a home daycare. It would need to be through pre-primary or a licensed child care center.
And Emily has a question. So would you have to find a place that involves childcare? Yes. So ideally, it would be done in a pre-primary program, in a childcare center, in a preschool program with children under the age of 6 or before school age. ECEs also work in before and after school programming as well. The focus of the program is really on children under 6, but there certainly is a school age portion as well. There have been exceptions, but there does need to be an ECE who's your supervisor, or what we call our ECE practitioner, who has a level 2. So that would be a requirement. But the most important thing, I think, for this cohort is really to look around your neighborhood. And your neighborhood, if you're in a rural area, might be quite large, right? And think about realistically, like, where is a good place that I could go, or where where is it possible for me to go on a day-to-day basis from a Monday to Friday point of view?
With the YMCA question, it would need to be a licensed child care center in a YMCA. Some of them have them, some of them don't, but it does need to be the licensed child care. And like after school, because the focus is on that under 6, programs that are after school for school-age children are not part of our practicum. But we can get into all of that in the fall. Mostly we just wanted to make sure that people were aware that it was coming. So you can be thinking about it and thinking about transportation and getting there and making sure you have that time set aside that you'll be able to spend the time working directly with the children and applying with everything that you've learned.
And I do see here about existing hours as well. Did you want to tackle that, Elena?
That would be something that this fall, make an appointment with me and we can talk through your situation in terms of prior learning assessment, whether or not you're able to get credit for those hours. But yeah, just mostly, I mean, if you're already working in the field, you probably know where your colleagues are, you know where the centers are, and we can figure out. That's why there isn't a placement in the first semester. We have lots of time to figure out where we can find a spot for you, or where you can find a spot in your community that'll work.
Okay, so now that we have an understanding about work experience, we're definitely going to keep an eye out for places in and around your community. I think we can head to the next slide. And we can always come back to questions at the end as well. So as it said here, it's a mandatory credit course or courses for experiences for a total of 520 hours, which seems like a lot, but it actually goes really quickly. Bethany and Sabrina are near the end of theirs now, and they can definitely tell you that it goes quicker than you think. Unfortunately, transportation, accommodations, and other costs related to work experiences are your responsibility, so be aware of that as well. Next slide, Elena. 15 days is not long, Sabrina said. Okay, so some things to prepare for your program. Some things that you need to do would be to, make sure that you have time for this. Can you attend classes on a daily basis? Do you have childcare for the kiddos in your life? Who are your supports that you can lean on if you get behind in homework, or you need to read out of a textbook, or if you need to work on a project? Luckily, the program does send you books straight to your door, which is a lovely part of this, but get yourself in school mode, I think, would be the best advice. Next slide. Thank you. Workload and evaluation. We do a lot of scenarios in the ECE program. Mostly assignments, I would say, would be the evaluations that we're using. There's group work as well. You may be thinking, like, how does that work in a virtual setting? It does. Bethany and Sabrina have done it. Project work as well. There are a few quizzes. I don't want people to be scared of those quizzes. They're mostly just to check for your understanding. A lot of them are open book quizzes as well. There's a lot of different terminology, especially in the foundational courses, and one way to get used to using them is just learning to type them out in different ways and using them over and over again. What's the workload like? It can feel pretty heavy. This program certainly likes to make assignments and evaluations fun. We are going to be working with kids, so we want to make this like a fun and engaging experience. And a lot of it has to do with play as well, so be prepared for that. Oh, Sabrina has a comment or a question.
Okay, somebody asked about working throughout it. I was a person that I worked full-time, and I also had a part-time position as well. So when Raquel says you have to really schedule out your time and be prepared, you do, because if you're not a person that's, a procrastinator, you will not get your assignments done on time if that's the case, because you're beat when you come home from work. And I found all my weekends were doing this schoolwork. So if you are looking to work, look to prepare to give your weekends up to do your homework.
And I do want to note as well that Sabrina is a little bit of an extraneous circumstance. So she was approved to do this earlier and had already worked in the school system and was connected with pre-primary programs. So this isn't really the norm, but she's certainly somebody who's put the work in and has done an amazing job at it. Tips for success, 10 classes. Again, we're really drilling that this is a synchronous workload. Seek help from your instructor, your faculty member if you're falling behind. Everyone at NSCC is here to support you. We want to see you succeed. So it's definitely the time to speak up if you're not understanding things, or if you need more support, or if you feel like you're falling behind. Earlier is better for those types of things. There's support emotionally as well. We have wonderful supports in student services. Our student advisors are lovely. So definitely use all of these people to your advantage, and attend activities and events as well. Some of them are done virtually. Actually, many are done virtually. So check those out. Newsletters come out very frequently with NSCC. Okay, it seemed like a lot. You might have some questions. Are there any sort of practical questions that haven't been answered before we jump into some practice class? I'm very distracted by this kitten, but I will try to do my due diligence here. Okay, if you do have questions as we go throughout, I know Elena's going to be on the lookout for it. And I guess we'll get started. Oh, I do see Spencer might have a question. So I'm going to pause 1 second. The kitten's getting to them too. Okay, so what will a typical class look like? I typically use a PowerPoint. I use a lot of video to keep things really simple. We're just going to do this with myself and some props. I'm going to cue Bethany and Sabrina to sort of support me in this too, because they're used to all of my silliness. And I think just to, switch gears a little bit from things being really formal, I think I'm going to start off with some play, and we're going to shake our sillies out. So expect some of this stuff. You might think virtually, we're not going to do this type of thing online. Sabrina's like, we're going to do this. So let's shake our sillies out, everybody, and I will start and model for you. So if you feel comfortable, you can be sitting in your chair. You can, oh, Angela, I like the moves. That's great. So we're going to shake, shake, shake our sillies out. Shake, shake, shake our sillies out. Shake, shake, shake our sillies out. Shake all our sillies away. We're going to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle our worries out. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle our worries out. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle our worries out. Wiggle all our worries away. Okay. Do you feel better? I feel a little bit better. We're in the mood now for this. And Elena's answering some questions via chat as well, so pay attention to that too. I'm curious if you feel comfortable checking in with the chat bar. Remember, it's that little bubble at the top that says chat. If you click on that, you should be able to type a message at the bottom. If you feel comfortable sharing maybe one word or like a quick sentence around what drew you to this program. I'm just curious. I won't get a chance to read them all, but I just wanted to get a flavor of, why ECE? Why early childhood education? What makes that interesting to you? I hope that's interesting to you because you are here. There has to be something. I bet Bethany and Sabrina are really interested too, being at the end of this. I can see the anticipation. Scott said, I want kids, but my wife said no. Okay, so I'm getting the sense that you enjoy children. And usually that is a reason why people want to work in this field, which is a great thing. We want ECEs to like kids. That's a very important requirement. Angela said, I've always loved working with children. I ran a daycare for years out of my home, and now my own kiddos are getting bigger, and I'd love to go back to teaching. Oh, that's nice. And the nice thing is that you can have a licensed home childcare program too that is looked after by a government entity. So that is a possibility. And they're really, really looking for them. I've seen a lot of ads from the government recently. Angela said, needed a career change after having 2 kids of my own. I thought that being an ECE is something that I would really enjoy doing. Nice. I've had a lot of students from the current program that did the same thing. I'm not going to get to all of them, but I just wanted a sense of, what drew you here. I think those are all very good reasons. Hopefully you're inspired by working with children. You love working with children. The nice thing about this program and being in this field is that most people have experience with kids, whether they're your own, whether they're nieces or nephews, whether you babysat, whatever it might be, you all have something to bring to this program, which is really great. Some things that we're hoping to achieve with this program in terms of outcomes are my number one favorite, developing relationships with children and families and caregivers. Learning best practices in the early years. Play is a big one. What are the best practices in play? Because there are best practices in play. Developmentally appropriate practice, observation, documentation, positive child guidance, promotion of diversity, trauma-informed practice, health and safety. There's actually quite a lot to absorb. People sometimes look at ECE as something very simple and, they're just looking after kids. This is really important work. You're really setting the foundation for people's lives into their futures. So there's a lot of theory behind it. We talk a lot about best practice. We talk a lot about research-based strategies and practices. So if you're coming into this thinking that it's going to be a breeze, some of it might be really difficult for you, and it might not be the thing that you expect, right? So I want you to really stick to those reasons why you wanted to come into this program. Like, stick to those reasons around, being passionate about children, loving teaching, missing it. Those are the things that are really going to motivate you to, keep with it when you find that one thing in this program that maybe pushes you a little bit. Another thing that's really important about this program, and one thing that we strive to do throughout all of the courses, is build your understanding of child development. And there's tons of reasons for this, but one big reason is to be able to plan activities for children, to be able to make sure that we're doing things that are developmentally appropriate, but also to set our own expectations. That's a really big one. We do have expectations of kids, whether we like it or not, right? And the province actually has expectations of children as well, so much so that they've created a framework around it that we talk about at length. I will pop it in the chat here, so if there's any of you that are really eager to learn more and aren't familiar with it, you can take a look. This is not homework at all, but their image of a child is confident, capable, and curious. And I'm curious what your image of a child is. So again, feel free to put in the chat what comes to mind. Think about 1 or 2 words when you think about a child. Like, what are your own expectations of kids, of a child? It's harder than you thought, isn't it? 1 word. Ooh, I love that. Curiosity and imagination. That's a good one. Good too, I guess you could say. Sabrina likes that one too. It sounds like something that you would say. That capable one for me is huge, because capable can mean many different things. Joy, I love that one. Skipping ropes can be used as electricity to them. Growth, that's another nice one, ties in really well to development. So as I was expecting from all of you who are really passionate about early childhood, These are all really hopeful, positive things. But I'm also wondering if you've ever had a time where you were frustrated with a child. And I know I have, having my own child, but also working in this field for about 10 years. So let's shift a little bit. We know that we all love children. We know that, we have these great expectations of them, but let's flip the script a little bit. And I want you to imagine the last time you were frustrated with a kiddo. Maybe even trying really hard to get their shoes on, they just won't go out the door. Maybe they're not listening to you. Maybe they're having a tantrum. Something that kind of triggers you and you're just feeling like, oh, like this is just not my favorite day with this kiddo, right? And then think about your expectations then, right? Are they matching what you've just written? Are you feeling like they're full of joy and they have so much growth? No, like that's really hard, right? These moments are really hard. So what do we do? Like, what do we do when we encounter these tough moments, which you will inevitably? Well, we rely on our strategies that we're going to learn about in the course. We rely on the best practices and we practice them ourselves, right? And there's this lovely hand model of a brain that I want to talk about, because remember, we talked about research-based practices and strategies. So Dan Siegel is a psychologist that I often quote. And he didn't come up with this. This is just brain research, but he came up with the hand model of the brain. So this is my brain. It's just a hand, Raquel. No, it's actually a brain. So this is your brain stem, okay? And this is like the center of your brain. And this right here is a region of your brain that's your fight or flight response. Okay, so it's your limbic system. This is the part of your brain that screams like, I'm scared, I'm hungry, I'm tired, right? I think we've all felt that. And I think we've all felt that at a time when either we're frustrated or we're with a child that's frustrated, right? There's also another part of the brain that is the front part of your brain. So if you're actually looking at the hand, like this would be the front here. So this comes down and it kind of controls that part. This is the thinking brain. This is the cortex that says, be reasonable, take a deep breath, everything's okay. And I want people to guess, maybe in the chat, or you could even come up with like a cool emoji or like a thumbs up or something. Do you think kids are better or worse at keeping this like thinking and reasoning part of their brain down? Do you think kids have an easy time putting the thinking part of their brain down as opposed to fully grown adults with a more fully developed brain? I see people typing in the chat. Sabrina and Bethany, also feel free to answer this as the seasoned students. Nikki says nope. And Spencer says, not totally developed yet. That's where we come and help them navigate. 100%, yes. So sometimes it's helpful to remember this stuff, right? That, kiddos have a really hard time doing this. And let's remember us too as adults. Do we always have an easy time doing this? Sometimes not. It depends on how tired we are. It depends on if we're sick. It depends on if we've had a long day. It depends on maybe the demands that we've had throughout the day, right? But we have to remember our expectations, not only when kids are at their best, but when they're at their worst. Right? And that's when it's really important for us to use all of these strategies. So Raquel, what are some strategies that you could use? Well, I will tell you, and we're going to go through so many of these when you enter into the program. But one of them that's my favorite is called Name It to Tame It. And what we do is we label these emotions, because when you're feeling scared or anxious or hurt or sad, it can be really tough. It can feel really scary. And one way to help your literal brain calm yourself down is to provide a name to it. They've actually been able to take MRIs of people doing this, and you can see soothing neurotransmitters come down when you're labeling what is happening. So we want to practice this stuff for kiddos when they're really, really little. So when they get to be bigger, you're used to doing these types of things. So what's one way that you can do this for kids? We can do it for them. by labeling it. And one of my favorite ways to do it is when it's happening in the moment, but also by reading books too. So for really little people, we might read a book like this, and we might look at a face and just say the name of it, like, oh, that baby, Sabrina, what do you think? What do you think this baby's feeling? Don't cheat and read the words.
Happy.
Happy. Oh, he's smiling. He's a kitty. Happy, right? What about this person, Bethany? His tears, by the way.
Sad.
Sad.
Yeah.
That baby's sad, really sad. And it might seem silly because we're just reading a book and using words, but this is actually a really helpful tool, a helpful mental health tool, not only for little kids, but for kids as they grow into adults. People think mental health challenges come out of nowhere. They don't. They come from, not being able to work through some of these things and a variety of other factors as well. But if we teach these things early on, they can be really, really helpful. For older children, we can talk a little bit more about emotions and get into the nitty-gritty of it and scenarios. So Elmo here, it's hard to see a little bit, but Elmo is depicting Grover here. Grover is going to try the big slide for the first time. How do you think Grover feels? Alana's really into Elmo. Grover's trying the slide for the first time. How do you think Grover feels?
Terrified, scared.
Terrified. He's so scared. So we can talk about more emotions like that. We can go through scenarios, and then we can also give helpful hints about what to do when you're feeling scared. Sabrina or Bethany, do you have any favorite calm down strategies that we've talked about in the past couple of years?
I actually used this one the other day, taking deep breaths, because the child was crying so hard and you couldn't even make out a word. So we had to calm them down. So once they're at a calm level, then you know they're safe, because really and technically when you cry that much, sometimes they tend to gasp, and it's like then you're wondering if they can actually breathe. So you got to use a calming technique, saying take 10 deep breaths, 1, and counting it out with them. Doing the actions with them helps them even more, and I find it helps them even quicker. Once I got down to like 9, they were gone. So they didn't even need me anymore. They were gone. I was like, where did you go? I don't need you.
That is an excellent strategy. Oh, go ahead, Bethany.
Okay. For me, I like the zones of regulation and calm down corners, which you can set up. It's comfy corners. You can give them fidgets to play with in certain activities that will help them distract them from calming them down, that you can go back and have a conversation with them.
Nice. All really helpful strategies. We can definitely go into a calm down corner and zones of regulation maybe later. It would take a whole unit to talk about that. But those are awesome strategies. For the breathing ones, something that helps little kids understand breathing even more, because sometimes you might tell a child, breathe, and you'll do exactly what Sabrina said, which is not really helping you calm down at all. So one way to help with kiddos to teach them these things is to use tangible things. Kids don't know abstract things yet. They need to see, touch, feel, practice real life things. So props can be really helpful. Props, aka toys, can be really helpful. So you could have something fancy like this to help you breathe, like, and then breathe out. Right? And they might kind of latch onto that. Or if that doesn't work, you can use like a flower. You're going to smell the flower and then pretend like we're blowing the petals away. Right? And they could also just be a cool decoration. Or maybe you're by the play kitchen and you have like hot pizza, right? Like, oh, it's so hot. What can we do? We can, oh, it smells delicious. Smell and cool it down because it's really hot. Or even use like a stuffy on their belly to get those big belly breaths working. And we can watch our stuffy fill our belly with air, so the stuffy like rises I'm not really doing it right now, but so it rises and then falls. But these really tangible things can be super duper helpful in teaching kiddos how to do this deep breathing and not just like inflating their anxiety with bubbles. Somebody had mentioned this too. Bubbles really help as well. Again, if you have real bubbles to use, which I really encourage you to have in any learning environment, but bubbles are great because I don't know if you've tried blowing bubbles like they don't really work that well. They just kind of spritz everywhere. So you need to have a deep breath to get like that nice, cool bubble that happens. Just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything here. Some really great comments too about kids and different ages, different chronological stages of development. Someone had mentioned not having vocabulary to use it. Yeah, I think that's all great. So I hope that gives you a little snippet of what we might encounter this fall in one of the courses. It might be what you were thinking about, it might not, but I hope your understanding is that even though it's online, it still is a very interactive environment. And the more that you put into it, the more questions you ask, the more you bring your own personal scenarios and stories, the more I think that you'll learn and get out of the program. I'm sure that you want to ask more questions. So maybe to get the ball rolling, I might ask Sabrina and Bethany a couple of questions that you might be thinking about as well. I did prep them for this, so don't feel like I'm a scary faculty member that just puts people on the spot. I did let them know I would be asking them a couple of questions. But Bethany or Sabrina, did you want to share maybe what you think the best tip is for being successful in this program? Because you two are very close to graduation.
Just staying up to date with your work, and if you have any questions, just ask your teacher or your classmates. And if you need supports, just go get them ready maybe before you start the program, or when you're in the program, you can look for tutors.
That's some really great advice.
I would say kudos, same thing, Bethany, and having an open mind, because one thing I realized is we have to look at the fact that each one of these kiddos comes from a dynamic family, and nobody knows the dynamic family that the child comes from. They carry a lot of weight each day, and when they're coming in, they expect you to be your teacher. Like, I'm so amazed at how these little ones, you're the teacher. And I never, ever, ever noticed myself. I've been in the system for 15 years, but never noticed myself as the teacher. And to hear them count on me to be the teacher is a main aspect. And it made me think, okay, they really count on me. It's not like they're counting on their parents anymore when they step inside that school. So you're kind of like their mom and dad when you enter in those doors.
Those are some wise words, Sabrina. We will work our way up there for anybody that's thinking that I have to be at that level. This program will support you to be at that level for sure. And maybe, what was your favorite part about the program?
I liked how just like how we had drop-in hours. I didn't really have to use them, but the structure. At the time, I wanted to do ECE online, but I thought, oh, well, I don't know if it would work out, but it really did. And just having success with all my grades was just amazing.
Seeing some of my classmates go through some tough times and still succeed was a big go-getter and pusher for me. Like, it's like I had an accident myself, but it's like they pushed me to bounce back too, because their situations were a lot harder than mine. And being that support there as a group was key, because I know that we did little things at Christmas time that normally you wouldn't do. So it's like you got to know your actual classmates, even though it is online.
I really appreciate those thoughts. Thanks for getting the ball rolling with some questions. I think now may be a good time for questions, unless, Alana, you have anything else to add?
Just as Bethany and Sabrina have said, we do have lots of supports. Bethany mentioned the tutoring we have. If you've ever been told you have ADHD or you're dyslexic, we have a disability support specialist. If you've never had a diagnosis, but you're like, that sounds like me, we have somebody who can support you with all those same things. You don't have to have a diagnosis or paperwork. So we do have that. And somebody in the chat had asked about what technology to have, and we do recommend a PC laptop because it works much better with our systems. But if you do not have that, we do have loaner laptops that we can send you to help you out. And I think Raquel mentioned earlier, in terms of the textbooks, we will send any textbooks out to you that you need. So like, if your friend says, hey, I have a whole set of textbooks, do you want to buy a used set? Do not buy them. We will send them to you for free.
I see some questions popping up. Feel free, if you're feeling brave, feel free to raise your hand or just say it out loud as well, but the chat is there for you too.
Yeah, desktop is also acceptable. We talk about laptops because they have the camera and the microphone built in, and it is really good to have those because, as you can see from this, it's a lot easier to interact if we can see each other. And yeah, Staples, like the one I have is a Dell that the college bought me, works great on all of our systems. Chromebooks do work. It gets a bit tough with some of the assignments and stuff to do that kind of work on a Chromebook. You were okay? I've walked so many students through tech help. I'm just like, let's send you a laptop. So
Yeah, I did have a laptop, but in my work, I've used the Chromebook and never had an issue. And I think Lindsay as well has used a Chromebook and she never had an issue.
okay, great.
The one thing for Chromebooks I find is just formatting in terms of like assignments, but usually we're able to work it out. We certainly don't want anyone to, go out of their way and purchase something just if they have a working Chromebook. So it will probably work out. It might just be something to do trial and error with in the beginning of the program.
And if you have a Chromebook and you try it out and you find it's not working, we can send you a laptop then. So
yeah, exactly.
we usually try to send out the books a couple weeks so that make sure that you'll have them before the start of the class. We also use a lot of ebooks, so a lot of electronic books, so that they're embedded right in your courses. Raquel, do you want to talk about assignments being submitted online?
Sure, yeah, I was just about to say that. Currently, all the assignments are submitted online. For any of you that have used a learning management system before, NSCC uses Brightspace. If you're not familiar with this, there'll be plenty of time to practice. There's even a beginner Brightspace course that you take at the beginning of the year. The beginning of the year meaning September. So you should be familiar with that, and you'll even get to practice submitting mock assignments, but currently all assignments are submitted online. So again, Sabrina's situation was extremely different. That was approved earlier on by our academic chair. This is typically a program that you would require not to be working. Sabrina was able to get certain accommodations.
If you are planning to work part-time, I would suggest evening and weekends. Though as Sabrina said, you will need some of that time for your schoolwork as well.
Scott was asking about proper schedule.
That will be out in August.
I think Nikki runs her own business, so it depends on what kind of business she got.
Yeah.
And Emily was saying, I would have to buy a computer since the Chromebook I have is slow and never loads. Perhaps one of the loaners might be appropriate for you.
And we'll be reaching out over the summer with things like, do you need a laptop, so that we can get you as ready as possible for the 1st of September.
And Scott had said, I think just in terms of flexibility of schedule, it's similar to other in-person courses. No one's going to hold you to the fact that like you didn't come to one class. Like life happens, right? Or if you have to leave early or you have to come late, these realistically are things that would happen, but on average you should intend to come to class on a daily basis. But certainly no one's going to hold it against you that you didn't come to one class because you were ill or that you had to have a dentist appointment or whatnot. Like life goes on as it typically would.
One advantage to eCampus is if the person sitting next to you has a cold and is coughing, you will not catch it.
That's a good point. Although I feel like the work experiences kind of catch you up on that, because your little ones are full of joy and full of germs.
But Scott's comment about having a mother ready to step in for some things, that's really important. Think about who your team is. Who are going to be the people that can step in when you're a little behind on an assignment and can help you out with some childcare? And who are your people who are going to be like, I know you're getting down on yourself, but you can totally do this. Because it's always good to have cheerleaders in your corner. There will be tough days. It's a 2-year program. But think about who those people are who are always there for you and who are going to be positive when you need that person saying, come on, because we'll all be cheering for you. But sometimes it's good to have your friends and family there as well, or your cat.
It might look a little bit different in September, so don't hold me to this exact time, but sort of mid-afternoon, I would say. It depends on, like your attendance to drop in, and it also depends on how quickly and confidently you work through things. So the afternoon time really supports student learning in a group setting and working through different scenarios, asking questions. So if you're feeling quite confident and capable, you might not have to attend kind of to the very end of those every day. So I would say like a 3 to 4 o'clock would probably be the end time, just depending on the day. It's always so quiet when everyone's reading the chat. Sabrina and Bethany have become
Raquel?
used to me.
Yeah, Raquel, did you talk about the writing component that's not a part of your course load, that's with another instructor that they should know about?
I did not plan on anything about that.
Hey, that's going to be a different thing because there is another instructor that comes into play.
So there will be an instructor that takes at least one course over the course of the year. We don't know who that is yet. I still have to work out all of my staffing for the fall. It probably won't be the same person that you had, Sabrina and Bethany, because I'm at a different campus than Blair was. But yeah, there is another instructor that comes in, and I'm not even sure if it's that course that they will be teaching, but there'll be another qualified instructor who comes in and takes some of the classes to take some of the load off our main instructor, because there's a lot of courses in this program, and that means a lot of grading and a lot of prep. So we try not to overload our faculty so that they can have lots of energy to focus on the students.
I think it also too depends on everyone's experience and different strengths and things, but thanks for that, Sabrina. I appreciate you. You just want students to be prepared. I know that about you.
Oh yeah, because that's the writing piece, right?
Yeah. And we try to make that course tailored to ECE as much as possible. doing brochures for your for a center, or things that are tied back to what you care about. We try not to use examples that are going to be completely out of your interest, or things that might be useful to you.
Any other burning questions or not so burning questions? If they do have questions afterwards, or I suppose in terms of the recording that will be posted, what would be your suggestion, Elena?
So we will be sending you an email. We'll be sending you a bunch of emails over the summer, but just a reminder, we have this email called, it's ece.virtual.nscc.ca, and there's a bunch of us who answer that email inbox. So even if one of us is on vacation, there will always be somebody around keeping an eye on it. So if suddenly in July you wake up in the middle of the night and go, I should have asked, there'll always be somebody here to ask, or somebody, like if you have a working situation this fall and you want to talk it through with me, let's chat. If you think, I know from my past learning experience that it would be good to work with a disability specialist ahead of time, we have somebody who can help you out with that. So we have a whole team that can help you over the summer with any questions that you have. Like I said, we'll have the actual schedule come out in August to help in terms of planning for work in the fall. But yeah, there's a whole team here for you. We can send you the recording of this if you think it was fun, but I don't remember anything that happened now. And we'll have orientation at the beginning of September, and that's when we'll get into the real nitty gritty of things. We didn't want to do everything tonight, because then you just come away going, and you wouldn't remember any of it.
I feel like a lot was covered too. Oh, Bethany answered this, which is great. Someone had asked, Emily had asked, what sort of jobs could you get after the course is over? So if you complete the 2-year diploma, you can apply for your level 2 ECE through the department. And that would qualify you to work in any licensed childcare center, preschool program. Some students have been hired on in parent resource centers, pre-primary. Did I say that already? I feel like I'm repeating myself here.
And this program also transfers to the Mount into the early learning, or child and youth. Yeah.
That's a good question. How many people are in this course?
We're working, we have a few more than 30 in it now, but with the assumption that sometimes things change over the summer, we're shooting for 30. And Lily, we can talk about that. I don't want to get too deep into that because I don't necessarily understand all the pieces of your question, but we can talk offline about that as well.
I can speak to that a little bit, just because I used to do early intervention. So yeah, they would make accommodations for that. And it actually, a lot of your learning would be really relevant to what you're learning about in the courses, and a few parents from the current course that is going on right now. We're working with early intervention as well, and they found it was a really nice fit for the strategies that they were using with their own child, and being able to, if they felt comfortable, sharing those experiences as scenarios for us to kind of go through. You certainly wouldn't have to do that, but I feel like the students who took this and also in their own personal lives had early intervention working with their children, it was kind of a nice fit. And again, accommodations for things like appointments, like anything health-wise, anything for your child that's health or development-wise is important. So that is fine. We are not going to say, like, don't do appointments, come to class instead. No, you need to do your dentist appointment. You need to do your speech language pathology appointments. Like, these things still need to happen. So for the practice teaching, Nikki says it's end of first year and then during the winter of second year. Is it the same time for everyone? So yep, there's four 4 times that it's embedded. So it's in the winter of the first year and then the spring, and then again, winter of the second year and then the spring. It's generally the same for most people. Again, sometimes things come up that are out of people's control, like health issues and whatnot. And if you speak to Alana and student advisors, they usually can come up with a pretty good way to make accommodations if necessary, if there's something big going on in your life like that. But typically done at the same time. Could we open our own daycare outside of our home if we wished? So I know the province is really looking for that. You, after this program you would have to go through an application process with the department for that. So that's done separately, but you could for sure. And there's actually a course that is like very foundational learning about that. I know the government's really looking to expand that. Is it 2 weeks at a time or 4 weeks at a time? Nikki, is this in terms of the work experiences? Just want to make sure we're on the same page. Yes. The first and third are 90 hours, so it's done in hours in terms of, not in terms of weeks. And the second and fourth are 175. The fourth one's 180 hours, not days, hours. I should have clarified that. Which
And
again,
Angela's,
sorry, it seems like a lot, but it does go quickly. Sorry, Alana, go ahead.
I was just going to say the question in the chat about whether they are always in the same setting or if we move from pre-primary to licensed childcare to see what's best.
The preference would be for you to move through different learning environments to get the most from your experience, and also to test your skill set with different ages. So as we talked about today, we would use this book with older children and this book with younger children. Like, you would get into the reasons around that, but there is a skill set, different programming, different strategies for different ages. So that would be important. Again, depending on where you reside, because this is a program that is specific to rural Nova Scotia, you might not always have that option, but it's encouraged that you would explore different environments. And if not, different places, maybe different classrooms, different learning environments within one center or one school if you're working in pre-primary. So very much encouraged for you to sort of explore different developmental ages. And Bethany has done hers in daycares and pre-primary. Sabrina, pre-primary. Good questions, everyone. Oh, I like how there's a shout out happening here. Like, I'm from Inverness. I'm from Richmond. Like, I'm Cole Harbour. Oh my. I did find in this course that there were little groupings of people who were from the same area, but I really do feel like this this program sort of builds a community of students. So it feels like one big community after a while. You don't have to just stick with your Picto peeps, although that's fine too.
Just noticing the time that we are at 7:30. It's been great to get to know you all a little bit today, and hopefully you got some questions answered, but we are, like I said, here all summer. You can always send off an email to us and we will answer, and we'll be sending out regular emails as there are key moments coming up so that you're prepared for September.
Thanks everyone for joining us and sharing your kitty cats and your doggies. And Sabrina and Bethany, thank you so much for being here and sharing your experiences, and just pay attention to your inboxes in the next little bit. Nice to meet everyone.
You too, thank you.
Bye. I hope you have a really fun summer and a successful fall entry into the program.